Welcome back to the summer series of the Tuck Shop Podcast, everybody. I'm Matt.
I'm David.
Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, Matt. I'm well. How about yourself?
Good. I hope people are starting to see some enjoyment out of these and getting some old art episodes they may not have, new listeners may not have had a chance to go back and listen to.
And
I
if
can't
not,
believe we're at like coming up on 60 episodes.
Yeah, I can't believe we. Yeah,
This is really neat.
it's kind of cool.
Well, when you think about it, I always like the perspective of, think we have. This is in the grand scheme of podcasts fairly successful.
All right.
Yeah. in the sense that
I don't know.
we
Sure.
We're not like
Hey, you having fun?
I'm
having fun. That's all that matters.
But there's a lot of podcasts that don't last long, or it's just you get one or two people. We got a lot of people that care about this and want to be a part of it, and I'm real excited. And I think the interesting thing is when the people want to be a part of it. We were
beyond listening.
Yeah. That's
you know what? And I always say, someone always asks me, how do I get more involved in the Alumni Association? My first answer is like us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
It costs you nothing. Doesn't take a whole lot of time, but guess what? You're now part of the group. You're part of the group because you know what's going on.
The neat thing is, especially I think with the podcast, some of these stories are so neat. Just you can even share them with people. I didn't go to UPJ. No, but we're gonna have we've already had a couple this summer. We're gonna have more coming up that are like, oh wow, I didn't. Stories that are just kind of part of history.
Relate beyond
beyond
the top of this mountain.
And, it really is been a really cool thing that we get to do, and I'm glad people are so excited about it. That first couple of days we had to twist some arms and kind of corral some folk when they see it, but it's starting to get better. And I think today's interview is a really cool one.
Yeah,
Addi Georgantzis. God, I always butcher her name, and she knows it. So, Addi, if you're still listening, hopefully you are. And sorry, I apologize for that. But Addi,
that's no good.
Addi is the first person that actually emailed me cold.
Yeah,
and said, "I love this show. I want to be on. I'm an alum."
We should get her a T-shirt if we had them.
Oddly enough, I'm working on that.
Oh,
I'm working on that. And
swag.
There might be.
Now we've made it.
There might be some swag.
We
in
get
the
swag
offing.
and fridge magnets.
There might be some swag in the offing.
There you go.
But yes, that she would definitely earn.
It's the first piece of swag.
Definitely earn that. We
So she contacted you.
She contacted me, and it's just kind of like, okay, it was really cool, and so we got Addi on, and she talked about her time here in nursing, and then being a nurse and being in New York during COVID and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, that's beyond the mountain, man.
And that's just a little slice of understanding that history.
Yep.
But that's been a really cool when people come up and say, my favorite story about doing this thing is when was a year or two back where it was probably last year when we were at the educational, or not the education, excuse me, the engineering event. And the gentleman came up and said, I love the podcast. Are those guys going to be here? And we're like, it's us.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, isn't that weird?
We're here.
Yeah, we need to get some video, maybe. It's like XM has a video feed, doesn't it?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I thought so.
That was a big thing for a while, like in the 90s, radio simulcast. I guess ESPN still does it.
I don't know.
But they used to, like, in the middle of the afternoon, it was like, here's Mitch Albom's radio show on television.
I don't know. This is the only podcast I listen to. It's my favorite.
Well, good for you. And good for Addi.
But again, that point is, I just want to make it that point. Addi contacted us or contacted you and said, hey, I want to be part of this. I say it all the time. We do the podcast, we do the LinkedIn, we do Facebook. Every week there's a different feature. There's business of the month. There's question of the week. There's fun fact. There's LinkedIn highlight. And these are just a few. And I always ask, if you have a legitimate question of the month, or you have somebody that would be a good highlight, send us the information.
Yeah.
This is, again, I've said it before, this is not my podcast. This is not your podcast. This is the alumni podcast, and everything we do on our platforms are for alumni, so it's same thing with reunions. We're out there saying, What group would you want to bring back?
Mm-hmm.
Give you or I that suggestion, and you know what? We're going to make it happen.
And there could be things that people don't think about that I've always been my attitude towards this has always been is people may think about like, oh, I kind of listened to these and I never did anything super crazy. I came here, I went to class, I did my thing, and I graduated, and then I moved on, and it was successful and stuff. But that's a story, and especially if the people and when if someone says that, I'm like, well, I have this cool thing I'm doing now with my company, or I invented this thing, but that didn't really happen when I was at UPJ. That's still a UPJ thing because you were part of this narrative construction that makes us all alumni together. So yeah, 20 years down the road since you graduated, and you're now working on this new technology or this new thing that you think's really cool.
Right.
Come talk to us about it, because that not only promotes what you're doing, but showing that UPJ grads can do these things.
Correct.
And I think that's one of the big benefits of how we've been handling things the last 3 years or so on the alumni side of things is your successes are the show that you something happened to you here that helped you get there.
Right.
And it could be whatever it is, whether it's something from, geez, David, we're sitting in my office and I'm behind me is my certificate that has named me a Kentucky colonel. It's like, is that a little interesting? Yes. Is it a little weird? Also, sometimes maybe yes.
Kilter, but hey.
But you know what? That's a cool thing. And it's just like, come talk to us about these things.
But I think, it's storytelling. I'm going to keep going back to, when we had I know this is in the past, but the media reunion, it was a room full of 45 storytellers.
Yep.
But the weird thing, Matt, you were at the brunch when I said, hey, come on up and tell a story. People were kind of like, I don't know if I want to tell that story.
Yeah.
And then they would come up and one would talk, and it was like, hey, there'd be all these other people that wanted to talk. You have to tell the story. You know what? There are others out there that find that story interesting. And there's a story to be told. Yeah. And this is the medium, I think, to make that happen.
I completely agree. And so if you're in that category, my contact information, David's contact information, is in the description of every one of these shows.
We'll get you on in the fall.
Shoot us an email.
Yep.
We'll get you on the schedule. We'd love to talk to you. Feature your, if you don't want to, I don't want to do on the radio thing for sure. I'm gonna talk you into it. But even if I can't, fine. Right. Business of the week.
Yeah.
Fun fact of the week.
Fun fact. Question of the week. Yeah.
We're glad to promote not just the association, but the members, which is you out there listening. So why don't we listen to our first volunteer?
Let's do it.
Listen to Addi. I don't have David with me again this week. He's wrapping up his vacation. But we get to welcome our first alumni guest who actually reached out without us having to ask and said, I want to participate in this insanity. Addi, welcome. I'm not going to try your last name before you do it.
Well, hello. I love the introduction. And yes, I 1000% reached out and asked to be on. My last name is Georgantzis. It's Greek. My husband is Greek. When I was at UPJ, I was Addi Waters, which is much easier.
Okay. When were you here on campus?
I was there from 2010 to 2015.
And what did you study?
So my first year, I studied biochem, thinking I was going to go to pharmacy school. And then I switched my major to nursing and graduated in 2015 with my bachelor's in nursing.
What drew you to eventually to nursing?
So my mom's a nurse, so that definitely, played a major factor. But I will be 100% honest. When I saw as pre-pharmacy requisites, I had to take history and economics. I said, no, that is not my strong suit at all. So then I switched to nursing. I applied and got accepted, which was amazing.
And that was, I'm trying to think of the timeline of structures. 2015 would have been before the new nursing building, or right about the time it was coming online.
Yeah, so I started up in Blackington, in that little hallway. And then in 2014, that building opened. or I guess 2015 technically. It was like my last semester there. I had a few classes and got to go like into the building, which was cool.
So you get a little bit of both worlds. This is kind of always the fun part. You don't have
Yeah.
that. You get to know a little bit of what you would have seen for 4 years, but
Yeah. I
nice.
was the third class to graduate, so it was still a newer program when I was there, but honestly, I loved it. They would say, "Oh, we're still working out the kinks," but truthfully, I really loved my time in the nursing program. It was really great.
Anyone stand out in particular, or just people in general?
So I mean, Dr. Dranak, who's still there, she's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She was really, really great. Dr. Katrancha was there for a while. And then of course I made so many good friends. I'm still friends with like Amanda McDonald, who was an AGD with me, Cassie Stein, who's now Cassie Casciato. She was like one of my best friends. I still see and talk to a bunch of people, even though I'm now in New Jersey. I'm not in Pittsburgh or in Johnstown anymore either. So that was, it's great. Like, I feel like I met a family there. Truthfully, what brought me to UPJ was my brother, Drake Waters.
I was going to ask you about that. What led you? Were you local and said I wanted to go to UPJ? Were you from out to where you are now and said, "Hey, this is pulling me there"? How did you end up here at UPJ originally?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. I am a Yinzer. I'm up here in the New York metropolitan area now,
How's that
but I'm
going
still a
for
Yinzer.
you?
Oh, it's interesting. I do love it. I love it. I love New Jersey where I'm at now, but I lived in the city for 7 years and it was crazy. It was a good crazy. I had a lot of opportunity and, it's really great. I miss Pittsburgh. I miss Johnstown, but I was that annoying little sister that followed my brother everywhere. He's only a year older than me. So I followed Drake to UPJ. He went to Central and some of his friends like Rob Wiederstein and like a couple of his other friends went
I
to
know
UPJ
Rob very
as well.
well.
Everyone knows Rob. I feel like he's like a UPJ legend.
We'll be at the golf tournament, by the way.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, the alumni event. I know too. Like my birthday's right around homecoming, so every year I always loved like homecoming because I'm like, oh, it's like a big party for me, but it's not. I don't know. It's just funny.
So you followed your
yeah,
brother here to UPJ.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because we went to high school together, and then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to annoy you and go to college with you. And he graduated in 2014.
In what?
No, 2013 actually.
In what?
So he had a bachelor's in like political science,
Okay.
and now he has his MHA. He got that from Pitt after, and he's now like a healthcare administrator. He basically runs a neurology like practice.
Oh wow.
He's a boss. Yeah, he's literally a boss.
But you beat him. You beat him to the podcast.
Yes, I did. And honestly, I didn't even tell him yet that I'm doing it. I can't wait. I beg to be on here because I think this is amazing that, this is like connecting alumni. I listened to a few episodes. I listened to Carrie Law's episode, which hers was like awesome. I love her.
That'd be about the right time frame. You probably had bumped through. Met Carrie at some point.
Oh yeah. Because she also knew my brother and she was an RA. So she wasn't my RA, but I knew like of her from that.
When you think about that time, all those different experiences and people, do you ever think like, well, yeah, I don't even want to say the different program, but what from outside of the academic side was like, man, that was the best thing. I love doing that. I'd go back today if I could do that again with, whether it's a sporting event, a dorm event, something on campus, just hanging out. What was that event that stood out? Something that stood out that says, boy, I'd do that again in a minute.
Student ambassador, hands down. Helping the freshmen move in was so much fun, and like getting to know them and like showing them what I loved about campus and I loved about UPJ, and like, like go here for this and this is who you would talk to for that. You know what I mean? Like just getting to know everyone. UPJ, it truly did feel like a family. It didn't matter like what year, if you were a freshman or a senior, like everyone knew everyone, sometimes for better or for worse, but usually for better. But I loved being a student ambassador. That was great.
Freshman Move-In Day is an amazing event. And if anyone who's never got a chance to participate and you listen to this show, please do. As an ambassador, as somebody who helps, as an alumni who volunteers to come back, it is amazing. The sheer and back me up, Addi, on this one. The sheer range of emotions from parents who are beside themselves, that what happened, this was kindergarten 2 seconds ago, now I'm leaving my kid at college, to also parents, hey, I got 3 more helping me unpack, can I leave them too? And everything in between, and the excitement and nervousness, there is almost that special energy.
Yeah, 100%. So truthfully, I helped Drake move in on his freshman day. And I remember I was like so excited, like I can't wait to go to college and like do something like this. And then it was my freshman move-in day, but Drake was also moving in too. He got to go to campus early, so like it was just so special because it was like our whole family was together, and it was just really, really great. But I also got to like sort of see people and meet everyone, which was really nice because it was before like starting classes. Like I was terrified as a freshman, like moving away, going to college and starting something new. So it was nice to kind of have some time to ease into it. It was, game changer for sure.
Because that would have given you, I'm trying to think of the schedule in 2015, would have been like, what, 4 or 5 days before the start of the term? A couple of...
Yeah, that's usually like what they did. So I'm like trying to remember. I lived in Hemlock.
Okay.
So that was great. I remember too, like it was easy for my mom to pull her car up, where like in front of Laurel there were like actual parking spots,
Yeah.
but everyone took them. So like I was like, oh yeah, like it was easier to move in because my brother lived in Laurel, and I'm like, oh, this was so much easier on my, like I kept like trying to compare it to his day. But even still, both days were such a blast. But yeah, no, we got to like move in about like 4 or 5 days. I think it was like a Thursday, and then classes started Monday or even like a Wednesday. And then as an ambassador, you got to move in like Monday or Tuesday, which was really great because then you got to get settled. And then help them move in. So like I got involved with that because I just was talking with Sherry Ray, who knew my brother very well.
Who's
and then, like,
still
I
a
got
big
connected.
part of campus today, still there.
I bet. Yeah, she's amazing. So she was like, well, why don't you be a student ambassador? And I was like, oh, that would be great. So I did that. And then also I worked like, I guess unofficially with the tuck shop. I was a student liaison because I studied a lot, like with nursing. So on like like Saturday nights, I would like sit in the tuck shop and I would be like the point person if someone needed help with like something in the game room, or like there's something going on in the Mountain Cat Club and like setting up like the microphones or stuff like that. So it was a great campus job because I got to like see everybody, but I was still able to like study, and I would bring like my friends, like we would all just kind of like, hang out and everything. So it was a really great job. So like all of that was like connected together, like being a student ambassador for Move In and for the tuck shop.
I'm trying to think of what has changed since 2015 for there. Yeah. The Mountain Cat Club, I think, is now the pit is now the pizza pit, pizza ovens and stuff. But the game room's still there, and that's exciting. The esports would probably be new since you were there. The whole esports setup. But again, that's just a really neat thing to be able to pull all those people together, and that have been nice to get that, especially that knowing people cross discipline. Mm-hmm. We are very, and it's not a negative thing when I say siloed, because that can be a negative connotation a lot, but you get very close to the people in nursing.
Oh, 100%.
I got very close to people in my geography department. I see it with business, teaching my business courses. And that is a neat spot you got to sit in that gave you a range of everybody.
Yeah. 100%. It was nice to like see other people because, especially with nursing, once you get into like the end of your sophomore year of nursing school and then into the junior and senior, like you're in clinicals, you really are just with your nursing group. And then once we moved to the nursing building, we were even more like secluded. She's still my best friend, Bridget Deasy. She was a computer science major. So we would meet up in Blackington because that's when I had my classes, and like, we would go to lunch together or something. And then once I moved to the nursing building, it was a lot harder to coordinate, which you wouldn't think it would be, but it definitely was. So just like, that was one thing I did miss about when we like moved the nursing from Blackington down to, the nursing building. It was amazing and a beautiful building, but like, I did miss seeing like other people other than my fellow nursing classmates, but all the more reason that I would just kind of put myself out there more, because I would sometimes get lost in studying and everything. So it was good. It was good to like put myself out there and socialize more.
You mentioned it a little bit with clinical. I've been very lucky to work with folks like Dawn and the folks in respiratory care on this kind of project and a bunch of other projects and so forth. I have a very intimate knowledge now of the medical issues after my last year and a half or 2 years. But what's that process different? Because the nursing program does do a little different from the standpoint of you're not doing 4 years of sitting in the classroom or even a lab here or there. You actually, it in a lot of ways almost mirrors or reflects more of a education program where you actually are out. What's that process like? What is that? What did that do for you? What was that like experiencing?
Yeah, so I will say hands down, UPJ's like clinical situation. There were some things I saw in nursing school that I never saw again, even in my career. So basically what it is like the second semester of your sophomore year. Now the program may have changed a little bit since I was there, but roughly most nursing programs, what they do is they get your feet wet starting you in clinical. So you have an instructor who takes you to, well, you drive yourself, you go, but to like the hospital, and you get a patient and you're their nurse, you're teamed up with the nurse that's actually taking care of them for the day. So you're essentially the student nurse with them, but you do physical assessment. It's all very hands-on teaching. So even though we have a beautiful like simulation lab and everything, it's so different with a real person. And it really was, I mean, I honestly can say I've been very fortunate in my career. I've had a lot of opportunities, and I am very lucky I am where I am today, but I wouldn't have been there without my Pitt degree. So brief background, I am actually a nurse practitioner now, which you need at least a master's degree. And I got into my program because they saw Pitt on my resume, and the president at the time was a Pitt alumni, and they were so excited to see someone from Pitt. So and it was New York City is very competitive with like everything in general, whether it's a seat on the subway or getting into grad school. So,
so you did your grad school out east.
Yeah, so
compared
New York
to campus.
City. So, yeah, I graduated in 2020 in the height of the pandemic, which I was like a COVID nurse on the floor. What they saw in the media, like that's what I did hands-on. Which was, I could talk about that all day. And then I'm now studying for my doctorate at University of Pennsylvania. I graduate in next May. And again, Pitt degree, you know what I mean? Like it's amazing, the name and, what UPJ prepared me for. So back to your question about the clinical, sorry, I got a little off track there, but
that's good.
You basically got real life experience. So when I was a nurse, by the time I graduated and started practicing, I was not as nervous because I felt prepared for my boards. I passed on the first try, which was huge for, that was a big thing that they wanted to make sure it was done. And then I was still scared at my first job, like taking care of my first patient. I was like shaking going into the room, but like I didn't feel as like overwhelmed as I think I probably would have been. The support and education, it's just, I couldn't have asked for a better experience.
That has to be very rewarding to be able to continue that, and both not just rewarding, but also stressful. I can't imagine having worked at the same time I did my master's. There's stress. It wasn't during a global pandemic.
Yeah.
So that is very impressive from the standpoint of having to deal with all those different pieces and still get out of that program successfully.
Yeah. I'll never forget. So I always worked in bone marrow transplant for most of my career, which is people with a blood cancer. We give them a lot of chemo and radiation, and then they need to get stem cells to rebuild their marrow, because basically it's like, an organ transplant, they, take an organ out and put a new one in. It's like we take your blood away and then we give it back to you.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's very, it's intense. And I remember March 17th was St. Patrick's Day of 2020. That was my last transplant I did. And the next day we turned into a COVID unit for months. And we just thought, oh, it's a couple weeks. We were all empowered. We were so excited. And then reality sunk in. I have videos of driving through Times Square and not a single person was there except for like my car, like as I'm like taking a video.
Wow.
I mean, it's like New York is still recovering from the pandemic. It's a different city now than when I, moved there in 2016. But I think that being a nurse in the height of the pandemic in the epicenter, it changed me forever, for better, for worse. It's some good and some, bad. I think that, being at UPJ and having like a solid foundation and knowing, honestly, like they actually taught us, like in one of our classes, our community class, like how to deal with like disasters and stuff. Like there was actually like a couple of lectures and everything like that, like disaster preparedness and like what would you do if a pandemic happened. I mean, it was like, you honestly, and I asked some people like that I work with, I'm like, did you guys ever learn about any of this in school? Like I remember taking it, like we had like a test on it, like it was one of our like chapters or whatever, and they're like, no one ever told us anything about like triaging and all those sorts of things. I mean, everything that we dealt with, I was at least somewhat exposed to, not thinking it would ever happen, but it wasn't my first time hearing a lot of the things that we were dealing with.
That's amazing to just hear those pieces, because everyone has a different take in what they took from their education and how that affected that time, and is very it's very interesting and very nice that we were able to do that. I often think about anytime a student comes through when I'm there at the doctor, like, yes, I'll talk to them, because I'm thinking it could be you. It could be the next Addi or the next whoever that gets that experience. What would you give advice-wise to current students that you would say, I did right, or you know what, I would do this differently?
I think one of the things that I did right, and this can apply to nursing students or just any student in general, is if there's an opportunity, or like if you're doing an internship or a professor offers for you to see or do something, do it. Because again, and truthfully, I can only relate it to nursing, but there were some things I saw in nursing school that I never saw again in my career, even working in New York City and during the pandemic. So if you have an opportunity to go listen to someone speak, or like, go, take this internship, or, volunteer doing something, do it. Because UPJ has so many connections that you should seek out every opportunity. I think probably the one thing maybe I would redo is, I think that I would sort of, I don't know, I honestly had a pretty good experience. I think maybe I took it for granted, like how connected I was to people and like to our community there. And I think that like, I think I would just like maybe be a little more like grateful for that. I felt like when I left, I was just kind of like, oh, wow, I'm not coming back again for, like next semester, like I'm done, and that's when it hit me a little bit harder. Like that definitely was really, really hard to kind of like let go. So I think I would have like tried to like mentally prepare myself for that a little more.
And that's somebody who's many years older than you are at this point. That's life.
Yeah, exactly.
So you never really think about it until it's over. But what a very unique, what a fun, amazing story.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially for our first, like I said, the first volunteer into this foray. I'm glad. How did you eventually find us doing this?
Yeah. So, how am I so crazy and saying and begging to be on? So basically, I follow UPJ Nursing on Facebook, and then also like UPJ and the alumni page.
Okay.
And I saw you guys like promoting it, and I didn't even know that there was a podcast until I saw it promoted there. And then I checked, and you guys were on Spotify, and I have like my Spotify membership, and I listened. I was like, this is amazing. And then I was like, I have to ask to be on, which I'm like, usually you shouldn't do that, but I'm like, I don't care. This is just so cool.
No, we're very glad you did, and I encourage anyone who would like to send out the email. Again, that'll be in my email, and David's will be in the description down below. But no, we're glad, and I always like to kind of hear how people found us, because I see the numbers and I kind of know what that means, but at the same time, it's kind of cool that you found us. And
yeah, you guys have gone viral.
1. All right. That's.
Woo!
Hey, you know what? As we clearly established, you have a very fine degree in nursing from UPJ. If anyone
Yeah.
can declare it viral, it can be you. It won't be the geographer. Addi,
Yeah,
thank you.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, this was just great. Oh, yeah, no. I just wanted to say thank you again for having me on. I mean, I'm just so grateful for my education there. And I hope that people listen to this and are, inspired to, whether it's, declare a major or just stick it out at UPJ, those sorts of things. And anytime anyone ever wants to chat, I'm always happy, they can reach out to me. So.
Thank you so much for volunteering. And just so everyone who will listen to this live will already know when it comes out, but you'll know early Wednesday morning. It'll be out early. By the time you wake up, you can hit your brother up and say, beat you this one.
I know. He's probably going to want to be on now too. We still have the little sibling rivalry, but I do have to say that we're very close and, Drake's great. So shout out to Drake.
Thank you so much again, Annie, for coming and spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
The Tuck Shop podcast is recorded live on the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown campus. Update your contact information with us by visiting johnstown.pitt.edu/alumni. Connect with us online via Facebook and LinkedIn, or consider donating to the university at give2, that's giveto.pitt.edu/giveupj.
This has been a production of Quantum Wave Media. Views expressed do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown.